CEO teachers. What a beautiful day to be alive. I am grateful for my health today. I am just getting over the worst kidney infection of my entire life, plus an extreme allergy to the antibiotic that I was put on. I was in the hospital. Whew, won't he do it? Back today, feeling great. Went to the gym this morning, struggle bus, but we have made it to the other side. Grateful today more than ever for the ability to sit before you and chat about life and all the good things that we can do as teachers to make ourselves feel a little bit more free. Today, we're going to talk about why creating a teacher podcast could be your best idea yet. So let me set the scene for you for just a second. It's 2018. I decided to leave the classroom because I was selling my lesson plans online, and I thought, hey, I'm making $100,000 a year. I'm going to leave the classroom and I'm going to see how this whole thing goes. So at this point, I'm about 7 months pregnant, and I decide to launch a podcast a few weeks before I launched my very first online course or my first program out into the world. At the time, the show was called, if you've been here since the very beginning, oh, you're the best, the Go Getters Podcast, because it was just something I came up with. I don't know what I was thinking. We later changed it to match our business, of course, the CEO teacher, and to be a little bit more niche specific. But I knew at the time that I had a program I was going to launch, and it was called, back then, can anyone guess? Drum roll, please. It was called Transform Your Resources. And I had learned kind of the idea of what a launch runway was, how to get people excited about something. And I said, I'm going to give them a lot of value. I'm going to try to get people on my email list. And I'm going to try to launch this program for $397, which was my biggest ask of all time. I really thought I'd make a couple $1,000, hopefully have some money for Christmas for my family, and just be able to relax. So little did I know that I would change my life forever. So can I give you the facts on how many downloads I got in those first few weeks? Sure. Can I tell you exactly how many leads my podcast brought in? No, I can't. I mean, it's speculation. I only did one landing page for everything. So I can tell you how many leads I got in that time, but I don't really know if they were from my show or if they were from social media. Can I tell you how many of those listeners in those first couple of weeks purchased Transform Your Resources? I can't. But what I can tell you is this. About 7 weeks after I launched the quote unquote Go Getters podcast, I launched Transform Your Resources, and I know that I made over $100,000 in 7 days. I also know that I made more than my teaching salary in the first 3 hours. I made over $38,000 in 3 hours. I am still getting chills talking about it. I remember that day like it was yesterday. If you haven't heard this story before, if you have, just bear with me. My husband came in. I got to work at like 5 a.m. I'm big pregnant. I'm standing up in my new stand-up desk. My husband brought me a Diet Dr. Pepper and a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit. And he also threw in a chocolate chip cookie from my favorite restaurant, Bobby's, in our hometown. And I'm eating my chocolate chip cookie because we opened the cart. All of you OGs know this. The people on my team actually were some of my first students. It was either 7 or 8 a.m. I can't remember what time it was Eastern, but people from all over the world set their clocks and got up because we put a limit on how many students could purchase the program. And within those first 3 hours, guys, I hit my knees. I cried like a baby. I called my husband, who thought I was in labor. I was hyperventilating, and I was like, what is happening? And my life changed forever. But what is so beautiful and what has significantly been the coolest part of this entire experience is that so many of our students have followed that exact same pathway to success. You see, a podcast is a way for you to get your voice into the world and into the teacher space. And I am living proof that millions of teachers are looking for your show, just like the one that you have in your head. Maybe you don't have anything to sell yet, but what I'm telling you is I can't give you the cold, hard data facts, and you know I love that stuff, but what I know without a doubt is that the reason I run a multi-million-dollar business a year is because of the CEO Teacher Podcast. And before we get into the show, I want to say I am forever indebted to each and every one of you for showing up here and loving me and the show each and every week. I love you. Now let's get into the show. Joe Rogan said, work for that feeling that you have accomplished something. Don't waste your time on this earth without making a mark. And he is the host of the #1 podcast in America. And Jordan Harbinger said, most people that I know are interested in on-demand stuff. Podcasts are essentially an audio Netflix. The number of podcast listeners worldwide will grow to over 465 million in 2023. Podcasting is a relatively untapped market with so many shows fizzling out after the first few months. You could potentially get in the ground floor and create the newest viral content by just showing up today. People ages 12 to 34 make up to 57% of the podcast listeners. 43% of listeners are between the age of 35 and 44. Most podcasts that fail are because of, here we go, a lack of, you guessed it, consistency. But as a teacher, you understand the need to show up regularly. My husband laughs about me having a office away from our home, and people will say, well, how often does she work? And he's like, well, she only works a couple hours a day, Monday through Thursday. But because she was a teacher, she has this fight in her that says, I have to show up and be at work at 8 a.m. And I think that is a testament to how teachers work. We're very serious about our schedules. And I know that if you can commit to a schedule for your podcast, you as well could be very successful. Many podcasters quit though after just the first 3 episodes, but I can help you set up your foundation so that you will continue to create content long term. Podcasting offers advantages over other types of content that you find online. It's typically free to listen to, but it's so easy because people can travel with your podcast. They can download it to their devices. They can listen to it with earbuds or with audio. You can listen while you're commuting, exercising, cooking, grading, planning, or rocking babies. Diane Reeves said, I think the only way for you to grow and evolve is to keep listening, keep moving forward, keep jumping in, and trying new experiences. Today, I want to give you 5 reasons why you should start a teacher podcast today. Number 1 is you're passionate about some topic and you have something to say. Number 2 is there are minimal startup costs. This is one of the most inexpensive ways for you to get found. Number 3, there's so much less competition compared to other social media forms. Number 4, this platform of podcasting is still growing. So you can get out there on the ground floor. And there's not very many things that I can tell you that give you a voice for your business that are similar to that. And number 5, your ideas are accessible 24/7 to your audience. So it doesn't matter where people are in the world, they can pick up their device and listen to your content. And that is really powerful. I want to give you 3 best practices when getting started creating an educational podcast. No matter if you're a teacher or not, I think that educational podcasts are the best podcasts. I'll be honest, conversational podcasts bore me to tears. I don't like drama, but if there's something I want to hear on a podcast, I don't want to throw out any names, but there's just 2 people that are having a conversation and they're talking about something that is dramatic, or there's it's got some climax about something going on in social media. I might listen to it for a few minutes, but I'm going to get bored and go off of it. So I'm not going to teach you how to create a conversational podcast. They bore me to tears. Whether that's in the education space or not, that's in any realm. I just don't believe there is a purpose for them in the long run. I don't see them as a strategic way to grow your business. And you can disagree with me. My mama always says we can agree to disagree. But if you're going to create a podcast for the intention of sharing about a topic, eventually having something to sell, which is what a business does, then I believe it should always be to educate or inform. You can still entertain and have a conversation through interviews, but it's not just you and someone else sitting down and just randomly shooting for the hip about a topic. I'm going to get off that soapbox because we'll be here all day. So here are 3 best practices when you are starting to create educational podcast. First, you are a specialist in your field. This is where your teaching magic comes into play. Spoiler alert, being a generalist is one of the main reasons that podcasts will fail. My favorite book of all time, I thought I'd give you a little bit of silence so you could just think about it, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I will live and die on that hill, no pun intended. And he talks about specialized knowledge. Teachers have specialized knowledge. General knowledge will not make you a lot of money in anything in life. The most successful people that I know are so niche specific in what they do. It's insane. I love that I get to tell people on stage next week at the Kajabi conference, I'm Casey Morris, and I help teachers finally make what they are worth by picking one of 10 pathways for starting an online business and allowing them to make extra income. That's a very, very specific job title. And because I have that specialized knowledge, it's allowed me to grow our company. And what you have as a teacher in the classroom is something very unique. Some of our most successful students, their specialized knowledge is so lasered in, like teaching children with autism, like being able to do math corners effectively, like understanding kindergarten centers. That is specialized knowledge. And you are a specialist in your field. You know who you serve. You know why. You are very clear on your audience. You aren't trying to talk to just anyone and everyone, and you're not just shouting from the front of the room trying to get everyone's attention. When I first started my podcast, I was too general. I was the Go-Getters podcast. Well, who am I serving? Go-Getters? That doesn't make any sense. Like that, I was trying to help too many people. There is much more endearing ways to start a dialogue or a conversation. Instead of just going into someone's direct messages on Instagram, you get to speak to these people through your podcast each week. It could be students you choose. It could be teachers. It could be parents. And because you understand your audience and what they need help with, you're going to find success. Next is valuable content lives on always and forever. Yes, sound quality is important. You know, I like to geek out over that, but you can have the best sound tech available. And if you skip the script or ramble, your listeners, they're not going to stick around. Practicing that 80-20% rule with your content. Remember, share 80% of your knowledge absolutely for free and gain a group of raving fans who will turn purchases for that 20%, that high-level specialty info. So I am giving you guys a lot of content, but that 20% that I save for our membership and our programs, it is very specific. It is the frameworks that have gotten me to where I am in our company, and I shared those with my students inside of our membership. Those fans that love listening to you every single week will be amazed by the service that you provide, and they will start spontaneously telling everyone about it. It's called UGC, which is user-generated content. And if you don't know about it, check it out. It's really trending in 2023. I think Taylor Swift is probably the best example of this that I could possibly think about, is that she is going to show up. Recently, she has performed in 2 complete downpours. I'm talking about the hardest rain you've ever seen. And Sister is in Louis Vuitton high heels on this stage in front of 70,000 people, giving it her all. She's been performing these shows in absolute torrential downpours. But what it's told people is that she's going to show up no matter what. So people are going to be more willing to invest in coming to her shows and booking the flights and buying the hotels because she is going to show up. Now, I mentioned that user-generated content was so big. There are 3 types of content that you can create when creating an educational podcast. You can create customer-based, so things that your customers are searching for. What do they want to know? You can use things like Uber Suggest or Answer the Public to find out exactly what your ideal customer is searching for and how you could best serve them in that way. Next is creator-based content. So you know what's working for you in your classroom, your life, your business, and you add this to your list of content creation ideas. And then finally is spontaneous ideas, but also planned. Okay, this can be seasonal, time-sensitive, relevant to the times, or part of that hype game plan for your larger ticket offer. So for example, recently we did a podcast episode on AI. I am feeling really old when it comes to AI. And so I had to take some steps back and say, even though I don't love this new wave of technology, it is the way of the future. And I have to conform or I'm going to get left behind. And so that was a spontaneous but planned podcast episode. Next up on the list of 3 best practices when getting started creating educational content is consistency creates excellence. As a teacher, you know everyone learns differently. We have auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, visual learners, but you also know that in order for someone to assimilate knowledge, they need regular exposure and regular practice. Auditory learners go hand in hand with the lessons that you'll deliver on your podcast. Your podcast needs to be a place that they can turn to consistently so they learn and they understand what you are trying to share. And that means they will want what you have to offer. There are 4 main ways that I want to encourage you to stay consistent with your teacher podcast. Set your goals. What do you want for your podcast over the long term? Schedule time to take action. Write it down and make time to show up for your audience. Get an accountability partner or 2 or 3 inside of our CEO teacher community or anywhere else, and have people that can understand your path so that you can cheer each other on. And finally, celebrate all of the small wins. The first 100 downloads, the first 1,000 downloads, the first 10,000 downloads. There are a few moving pieces when it comes to podcasting, but being able to celebrate each and every milestone, uploading your first show is a huge accomplishment. I remember when we celebrated our 100,000 download mark, and I did that with my family. We had 100 balloons. We had the number 100 balloons, and that was still a very special memory to me, but it allowed me to celebrate the journey, right? It's not a destination here. It is really loving and embracing me getting to sit down every Monday, you listening each week. It's been 4 years in the making that we've made it to 1 million downloads. And that is such a beautiful process. There really isn't a one size fits all when you deliver educational content. And that is the beauty of it. But what I'm saying is that you could be the person that gets in at the ground level of the teacher podcasting world, because there are not that many shows out there. The best approach is to use a combination of strategies that suit both your teaching style and the needs of your audience. I cannot wait to see podcasting growth be the next instrument in your teacher toolbox. Thanks so much for listening to the CEO Teacher podcast. And as always, remember, the best is yet to come. And I'll see you next Wednesday right here, same time, same place.